Have you ever been part of a project that's been described as a bring me a rock kind of project? These are the types of projects that are labeled as such because they're vague. Their scope's not clear, you're not sure what you're building, and you have a customer that's never satisfied with whatever you deliver. We call it a bring me a rock project because it's so vague, you may as well just bring a rock. So, okay, let's carry this out a little bit. You go bring a rock, and then the customer says, no, that's too small. I want a bigger rock. Okay, so we go get a bigger rock. Then they say, I don't like that rock. I wanted a yellow rock. Okay, so then you get a yellow rock and you bring it to them and they say, I don't want a yellow rock. I want a bicycle. What? And that sounds like an exaggeration, but it can't actually be that absurd and can be that ridiculous. And then at this point, your only deliverable for this project is frustration and aggravation. So there's a couple of ways you can think about these types of projects. One, if you identify them and recognize them, avoid them at all costs and don't mess with them because it's just a waste of time and a waste of money. That's one way to think of it. Alternatively, you could think of it as a necessary part of the project process. It's like iteration, it's evolution, typical for a innovation type project or a project that your group has never done before. So this may not necessarily be the worst thing in the world if you think it through. Let me share with you an example of a project that I worked on. This was a data infrastructure project in the aerospace industry, and the idea was that we wanted to streamline and centralize the flow of data through our systems. And that was about the extent of the scope that was given to me. Pretty vague, pretty wide open. As far as I was concerned, you may have well just told me to go build the internet. So, okay, let's take a look. We'll figure this out. One of the nice things with this project, though, is that I had a fantastic team to work with. To me, the most important part of this project was the customer. The customer team that I worked with they were very engaged. We had access to them, and they would get down in the weeds with us. We had a standing meeting. It was about a once a week meeting, and sometimes we had other additional meetings to that so that we can talk through some more details. So it was great to work with them. We had several these bring me a rock type moments, but instead of getting a flat out nope, you're wrong, they worked with us to help understand the vision. There were even times where they said that they themselves aren't too sure what the vision is, and so we were on this journey together. The second piece that we had a very mature team of software developers. These folks were solid. They were good data architects. They were good software developers and human factors with a great bit of expertise that they brought to the project. Add to it, the dynamic of the team was fantastic. They communicated really well. They liked working together, and egos and personalities were not in the equation. So it was a fantastic dynamic. So I didn't get a chance to finish out the project with the team. I had to move on to take an assignment, but there's a few key points as lessons learned that I could take away from this. Number one, a good relationship with the customer. The success of the project depends on the trust and the collaborative willingness of your customer. And here's the challenge with this, because oftentimes your customer, who's the visionary, tends to be one of the busiest people in your organization. So early on, at the very beginning, you have to establish a regular cadence of communication with them. Even better if they have a willingness to dive in the weeds with you guys, roll up their sleeves, get dirty, be part of that collaborative brainstorming work that needs to be done to develop the project. If you don't have this, if you don't have that kind of a relationship with the customer, you might rethink the project and not take it on. Number two, you need a mature project team. And this is maturity from both the technical perspective and from the team dynamic. In my experience, it takes 4 to 6 months to develop the team dynamic, and at least 2 to 4 years, sometimes longer depending on the technical nature of your work, before you can start applying that technical expertise in some of these creative, out-of-the-box, innovative type applications. So be patient, allow some runtime for your team to grow and mature, and then you can start building up your team to take on these projects. Also recognize that a part of building the team could be replacing team members if the team chemistry is just not right. So keep that in mind, keep open to that, because that team dynamic is a very important part of work like this. Number 3, flexible project scope. In your project documentation, like your charters and your statements of work and your contracts, there's a balancing act that you're trying to maintain, where on one hand, you want to be able to articulate a deliverable, but on the other hand, you don't want to be so restricted and so constrained that it stifles the creativity that you need for an innovation type project. You want to use words like proof of concept or a prototype or something like that, so that it gives some latitude to figure things out as you go along. Number 4, time box your project. This is similar to you're developing your project scope, where on one hand, you want to give yourself enough time to develop the concepts, but on the other hand, you can close out the project without wasting too much money if things aren't progressing the way you would hope. You can pick some dates, some time frames that make some sense for your organization. 6 months is an arbitrary time that's probably a good time, or maybe the end of your fiscal year or your calendar year, whatever works, just so that you can come to an end point and make an evaluation. You can even set up a milestone review with your team and the customer to gauge your progress. Best case, the team is progressing well. You make some minor pivots and you can keep on moving forward based on what you've learned so far. But at the same time, it is okay. It's absolutely acceptable to recommend against continuing the project. Stop where you're at, cut your losses, and you can move on to something else so that we're not wasting time and money. So consider taking on a Bring Me a Rocket project. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be scared of it. Try to look at it positively as iterative and evolving. So this is something that's you need to do for innovation type projects. Because if you're successful with this, if you can think it out, there's lots of potential for success and innovation with your organization. I'd love to hear your comments, and if you found this useful, please hit the like and share buttons below as well. Thank you very much.